Hey guys, this is Lorenz of the Ketones and Coffee Podcast. Make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any of this great content. So excited for this, guys. Stick around because our guest today is a board-certified health coach specializing in metabolism, fat loss, our relationship with food, body and food, and diet culture deprogramming. And the owner of Eat Simple, which is her coaching practice with her mission to help other people find freedom from food fixation and achieve an effortless relationship with food. She also trains new health coaches at the Primal Health Code Institute, where she empowers, support, and inspire new and practicing health, fitness, and nutrition coaches. She is also the co-host of the ultra-popular podcast, Health Coach Radio. I'm here with Erin Power. Erin, welcome to the show.
How are you? It's very festive. Merry holiday.
I know. It's very holiday. Yeah. Again, I was talking to you about not being in my element today because I had to work out of my office, and honestly, this is the first time I've done it. The 2 years of doing podcasting, so maybe it's a direction that I'm gonna go with. Maybe I'm gonna fly anywhere and do the podcast. Who knows?
Laptop lifestyle. Take it anywhere. It sounds great.
Welcome to the show, Erin. How's
Thank
everything?
You. Everything's good. It's such a neat time of year, and I don't know when this is airing, but it's like the end of December, and I love how this is gonna sound crazy, but I love how slow and quiet it is. Yes. I know that seems crazy because it's like we feel like we ramp up for the holidays, but there's this moment in time, kind of the week before the holidays, where things are kind of slow. I feel like everybody's kind of like retreated inward, and I really love this sort of pace. This is the kind of pace I live for.
Yeah, and it's actually early. Winter came early in Ontario, at least. Ontario, Canada, and winter came in November. It was snowing in November here. And so it was, I'm not sure how it is in Alberta, but I know you guys get early winters there too, right?
We do. Well, actually, where I am just outside of Calgary, because of the proximity to the mountains, we actually generally get late winters. Like it's quite often where it doesn't snow until December, but then it lingers until May sometimes. It's brutal. But this year it started earlier.
I was just there this summer.
Oh, too. Yeah. It's got really wild weather patterns out here. Well, Alberta's just kind of wild, basically. But I'm still at the point where I think it's cute. It still feels cute. But like, hit me up in February and I'll be done with it.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited to have you on here today, making an appearance on the Ketones and Coffee Podcast. Guys, definitely stick around. Erin here is a wealth of knowledge. Lots to discuss here for you guys. Another fact about Erin, guys, is that she has been in the fitness industry for almost 30 years. Is that right? 30 years, give or take?
Yeah. Yep, 30 years. Well, I started on my 18th birthday because you had to be 18 to get a job at a gym. So I got all my certifications sorted out when I was still 17. And then on my 18th birthday, I marched into a gym and got a job. So I'm 46 years old. So yeah, I'm coming up on almost 30 years in the fitness industry since let's call it mid to late 90s.
Seen it all and worked. And you did, I saw somewhere that you worked with over 1,000 clients at this point.
Yes, well over 1,000. In fact, I probably have to update that stat because at this point it's probably well over 2,000. I get about
Really?
I probably go through between 500 and 700 clients a year, but this is my one-on-one client practice. Plus, I run group programs, so the numbers kind of exponentially grow as the years go on.
For our listeners here, we would love to learn more about your journey to food freedom, and we know that you have been for years has been helping other people reach that goal of freedom from food fixation. And you talk a lot about, simplicity and just, there's another word that you call it. What's it called? Oh,
effortless?
Effortless, yes. It's everywhere. Your awakening, so to speak, the wake-up call. I understand that at the pinnacle of your career in the fitness industry, a very unexpected turn of events happened. I believe, read somewhere that your doctor declared you pre-diabetic and close to a full-blown to type 2. And of course, that didn't last. You had since turned that around. But can you share what might have led to that, and how were you able to turn it around that quickly for
I
our
love it.
listeners here.
That's a great place to start because I have told this story 100 times, and the background of it is interesting-ish. But what I think is really interesting, what you just asked, is how, like, sort of biochemically, how does this happen? Because this is the question I had. Like, what do you mean I'm pre-diabetic? I eat well and exercise. I'm addicted to exercise at this point. I'm fully embroiled in an eating disorder. Like, it didn't make sense because we always associate diabetes, type 2 diabetes, with like overweight, lazy, sedentary people who eat junk food and, drink big gulps. And I was not doing that. So it literally, it's because it didn't biochemically make sense is why I got so frustrated. But here's why, what I know now, for me, overtraining was probably the trigger. So if I pull this back, so we know that type 2 diabetes is the body's inability to kind of respond to insulin. The cells become resistant to the hormone insulin. They just sort of slam the doors, lock them up, throw away the key. So insulin's knocking at the door with fuel, but the cells are like, no, too much. Well, how do I tag this back to overtraining? Well, when you're overtraining, first of all, and I'm talking about overtraining, I'm talking 4 to 6 hours a day, predominantly high intensity cardio, because I was a fitness instructor. I still am. So I'm doing this crazy high intensity effort for way, way, way too long. And first of all, that's metabolically confusing. Your body does not know how to fuel that kind of effort. Like, it knows how to fuel a slow and low effort. It knows how to fuel very, very high intensity efforts. But this sort of what Mark Sisson calls the black hole in between is a metabolic no man's land. So it's metabolically confusing is how I put it. But also it makes you really hungry. And when you become insulin resistant, anybody who's been insulin resistant knows this, your hunger is absolutely overwhelming. And specifically, you end up craving sugar, carbohydrate, starches, because of the insulin resistant cells are like just begging for sugar. So you're doubling down on more carbohydrate. And I was eating healthy carbs, whatever, 12 grain bread and,
Yes.
potatoes with no like rice and all the bodybuilder kind of carbs that you might eat. But just dumping more sugar into the blood. But the whole sugar uptake system is broken, so it just exacerbates. But I do believe that overtraining is one of the triggers. Also, adjacent to that, I was really embroiled in that fitness culture, which was I was eating 7 meals a day, lean protein and healthy whole grains. So my ground turkey and brown rice, and just really consuming a great deal of carbohydrate, thinking I needed to because I was doing all this hard exercise, and just dumping glucose with no other appreciable nourishment, no real good fat in there at all. I was a zero fat person and proud
Zero
of it.
fat.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like protein was sort of an afterthought at the time. So I believe that the fitness industry, my involvement in it at that sort of extreme obsessive level is what kicked off my insulin resistance.
So we now know that eating a low fat diet, is part of why we are always hungry, because we're never satiated. And also I want to ask you, like, and of course, even though you were strictly following the, is it the calories in and out model that you were following at the time?
At the time, it was probably more macros, more or caring about macros. And like, so because I was really obsessed about being as low fat as possible, I felt like I needed X number of carbs to fuel these workouts. And then, like I said, protein, we weren't even talking about it then. At least I wasn't, because I wasn't in a bodybuilder realm. I was in this cardio bunny realm.
Nowadays they call it, is it, if it fit your macros?
Okay. They actually call it, I think the more popular term nowadays is flexible dieting, which is hilarious to me. Which I could talk about this for hours, because it's so not there's no flexibility there. Like, as somebody who really coaches people to be flexible with food, I don't know how the if it fits your macros approach became known as flexible dieting, because it's so rigid. You have to eat these macros. And I think where they come from is like, well, you have your macros, you could eat ground turkey and rice, or you could have a piece of birthday cake, as long as it fits your macros. See, it's so flexible. And I'm like, it's the opposite of flexible. You are bound by parameters.
Erin, every time somebody says, like, on my posts, some of my posts about keto, they will say, it's all about calories, bro. It's that if I get $1 for every time somebody says that, I'll be a millionaire by now. Because every time they say it's all about calories, and every time I tell them, okay, so a calorie from olive oil is the same as calories from a sugar, and I don't know, but maybe they're missing something there. And is it the diet culture, the fitness culture? That's what are they missing here?
Well, so I think about it from the perspective of like the people that I work with. And so
Mm.
what we do know, and we have to just be honest, like from a fat loss perspective, we have to have some caloric deficit. There has to be some incentive for the body to liberate stored fuel. And so the caloric deficit becomes that incentive. But there's a pile of additional biochemistry involved in the liberation of fat and then the use of fat in the cells, right? So the caloric deficit is
Yes.
sort of stop one on this train, but then we have to have a body that is adapted to using fat as fuel. So like well-functioning mitochondria. We have to have a body that's adept at using ketones because that's a byproduct of fat liberation. We want to be able to have access to that. Like this idea of metabolic flexibility is where I live, which is the
Yep.
body knows exactly what kind of fuel it needs. It might need sugar for this. It might need
Yep.
fat for that. It might use ketones for this. But like when the calories in, calories out thing, the it's calories, bro thing isn't untrue, but it's by itself not true.
Yep.
It's like, yes, and also you have to have the proper function of insulin.
Yep.
You have to have well functioning mitochondria.
Yep.
To your point, your hunger has to be well managed because otherwise, this all like you're dead in the
Yeah.
water if you're starving.
There's a lot of factors there too. Like you mentioned a few of them, and if you're familiar with the four pillars of health, sleep, movement, nutrition. What else am I missing? Movement. All right. Did I say that already?
You
Anyway,
said sleep, movement, food. What would the fourth one be? Is it stress?
stress.
Or-
Yes, stress.
Yeah,
And
good.
the worst part is when on the in the fitness industry and the diet industry, diet culture. The worst part is people blame themselves when it doesn't work for them, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. You also had the confidence that you followed it and you still ended up, pre-diabetic and created this perfect storm for you to find out why the heck what's going on, right? For these
Right.
people, they don't get there. They'll just blame themselves and, because it's everywhere and it's almost like a general uh, knowledge for other people now. If it's calories in and out, it's eat less, exercise more, and like I said, like if eat less, exercise more is right, then why do we have this epidemic that's going on
Right.
right now,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. I think you touched on an interesting point, which is when I achieved pre-diabetes and I was gaining weight, by the way, I was getting very fat. I was getting very fat despite exercising all the time. That was one of the symptoms that I hated, but mostly I hated the lack of energy and just like brain fog. But when I got that pre-diabetes diagnosis, I rejected it. I was like, no, nope, I don't accept that. I'm going to go learn about this because that doesn't make sense. But most people, because honestly, folks like us, like you, like me, like people listening who have decided to adopt a completely new kind of out of the box lifestyle to fix what ails us, we're outliers. But the majority of people, when they have something like that happen, they think, well, I just need to diet harder. That's what they've
Yes.
been programmed. I need to restrict more, exercise more. That's not going to work. You mentioned the four pillars of health. Stress is the one that is hardest to kind of wrap your arms around. But one of the most chronic sources of stress I see from people is their stress about their diet and exercise and lifestyle and their body weight. Like we're stressing about, I'm working so hard and it's not working. I restricted so much and it's not working. I exercise so much, the scale's not moving. This chronic stress in our lives, the stress of I'm dieting harder and it's not working. And then it's like at a certain point you get metabolically over leveraged. You can't diet harder.
Yeah. Mm.
But no, they don't know any different. So I hold
Yeah.
really supportive space for these are people that I work with, the people who come to me and they'll literally say, I've tried everything and it's not working anymore. And everything that used to work has stopped working. And I'm like, I totally get that. I know what that feels like. I know how frustrating that is. All we have to do is kind of just fire back up some metabolic machinery and it's not that hard, but they've never been exposed to that messaging.
And this is why I love true practitioners. I call, you know, coaches like you who has really gone through the trenches, who's really have that experience, years of experience of failure. You know, especially you have, you know, a lot of experience, years and years of experience in the fitness and diet industry. You have sort of this empathy for people because you know what they're going through. I'm not saying diet and fitness culture is wrong. It certainly can work for some people, right? But why doesn't it work for everyone?
Yeah.
They see all of these people in the gym, you know, with abs, nice butts, and they can't help but compare themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what is so wrong for you? Like, I want to get to explain this to people. For some people that who are listening right now, why? What's really what's the diet and fitness culture today? Do you think that what's the wrong message that they're sending out there?
Mm-hmm. So I do think it's a pretty nuanced answer, and I don't really want to like knock everyone over the head with a big club here. And
Mm-hmm.
even when you were doing my little intro, I was thinking like, ooh, my intro has a lot of this food freedom messaging in it, which I started talking about probably 8 or 9 years ago. Now, food freedom, hashtag food freedom, is this whole other movement where it's like health at every size, all foods
Mm-hmm.
fit. I'm not at that end of the spectrum. I'm not at the end of the spectrum where it's like let's all get shredded and walk around with six packs and like ridiculously low body fat all the time. I'm working with regular people. People who just have like who just want to feel comfortable in their bodies. They want to have really well managed appetite and cravings. They just want to kind of feel this effortlessness that I talk about. It's nebulous to describe an effortless relationship with food and body, but like the very shredded fitness people do not have an effortless relationship with food and body. And I say that as somebody who had a six pack. There was nothing effortless about that. That was 100% effort. So I don't have any use for this. Sometimes when I see the if it fits your macros crowd or the it's calories bro crowd, it's like these are bodybuilder type of people who are trying to achieve a very specific body composition. And for that, you do need to be super dialed in. I couldn't care less about that. I'm just, no, it's not it for me. So for regular people, for normies like me now, because I'm a normal person with a normal level of body fat for a woman, where diet and fitness culture really screwed us over is first of all, the culture beauty standard is to be tiny and thin, at least for women.
Mm-hmm.
For men, it would be to be, I presume, lean and probably jacked. So that's also hard. It's just very hard. Both of those things require tons and tons of effort. They're not our normal sort of biological state to a certain point. So women, which are my clients, are taught to shrink and shrink and shrink. A lot of this language in the gym about burning and shredding. And like, how catabolic is that language? Like, you need to be less and less and less and less. And and I did that and I prescribed that. I mean, how ashamed am I of the tens of thousands of fitness classes I taught where I said, burn, feel the burn off that Thanksgiving dinner, get shredded for summer. Like, I said that stuff because that's what we were saying. And it's like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. So now I'm all about, well, let's build. So if I put this language out there, let's build, ladies. We want to be heavy. We have to be substantial. Aging is going to knock us down. We need to fight against it the whole way. Like, let's go. Let's walk up the down escalator of aging. But that doesn't sell. No woman wants to be bigger, wants to be heavier, wants to be sturdy. Like, these words are not pretty. But that's not their fault. That's the programming. And when I think the scourge of diet and fitness culture is that we've been programmed in it for generations now. Generationally, my mom dieted, my grandma dieted. So like, I was born this way in a manner of speaking. And that's hard. It's incredibly
Yeah.
hard to change your mind that way.
Yeah. And you talk about, on your own transformation journey, you talked about not only weight loss, but your energy has surged effortlessly as well. I think where our worlds intersect is making it simple for people, making it effortless. I got into, this podcast, becoming a health coach, and I want to focus on just letting people know that this is simple. Not to say it's easy.
Right.
It can be a simple change. The changes are simple. It's just our mentality that has to change.
Yeah.
You talked also about unlearning and relearning a lot of things because of, especially if you're coming from a standard American diet. And I love this word simple. It's all over your platforms, website, IG. It's the overwhelming message that it's simple,
Yes.
and it is. I believe it is too. And you talk about creating an effortless relationship with food, and wanted to tell everyone about it. You have this clear mission to help people understand how simple this is. I'm curious on how you will answer this question. In the many years you've worked in the diet and fitness industry, where do people struggle the most? Is it diet? Is it sticking with the diet consistency? Is it mindset, Erin?
Wow, this is an ever-changing answer. It's such a good question. I feel like right now, what I'm hearing from my clients the most in terms of their struggles, which is what health coaches, that's the space we play in. Like, what's working? Great.
Yes.
What isn't working? Like, let's look at what's not working and like let's solve for it. What seems to be not working pretty consistently for people is that they approach this with a black and white, all or nothing, perfectionist attitude. And they'll even almost proudly say, I'm a perfectionist. I'm either all in or all out. I have to be 100% compliant. If it's not 100%, it's zero. I'm like, well, there's your problem. Like, there's just no way that's going to work. So what I'm getting people, what I struggle and what I need to get people more comfortable with is like being like 85%, like a B minus. Great, great, great grade. You know, nothing wrong with a B minus. But it's these people, this self-declared perfectionism, which I don't know why people are declaring it because it's literally not true. I recently had a client who said, I'm a perfectionist. I'm either all in or all out. And I looked at this person's intake form. I said, well, that's patently false. That's objectively untrue. You're neither all in. You haven't been all in, at least according to this 2-week food journal you just gave me. There's been no 100% perfect days, but there's also been no 0% bad days. You've been like at somewhere between 70 and 90% good, using air quotes. Like, you're not a perfectionist. Why do you think you are? This is some kind of identity statement that people anchor to, because, and then I think too, the diet culture programmed them because, you know, that's one of the pieces of language around diet. Like, you're on the wagon or you're off the wagon. You're being good or you're being bad. It's this binary. But life literally doesn't exist that way. And our relationship with food doesn't exist that way. And you're sure as hell going to have birthday cake or shortbread at Christmas or whatever, pizza on pizza night. Like, it's completely ridiculous to suggest that you're a perfectionist. So, but that's like brain rewiring. Like, why do you think you're perfectionist? Where did you get this idea from? Why have you anchored to it so strongly? Can you see that it's actually not true? What if it wasn't true? What if you were an 85% person? What would that be like? And then people go through this panic. Well, if I'm only at 85%, I'll never achieve my goals quickly enough. That's the other thing. People want fast results.
Yeah.
So people are doing a lot of advanced calculus in their brains about how perfect they have to be and how fast it has to go. And I have to kind of unwind that math for them.
You know, the one I read somewhere, I think it's Limitless by Jim Quick. The most dangerous word is I am.
Yes.
Yeah, after that is you have to really think about that, because what you tell yourself happens. Like you're saying, like if I said I am a perfectionist, then is that actually, you know, if you tell yourself that, do you know the consequences, right? You say, if I'm in, I'm all in, I'm all out. That's dangerous because that can go both ways. You really have to think about that, audit yourself. It is, you know, a lot of these things are in the beginning when you start something that is really different from what you're accustomed to. You're gonna come across all these old beliefs and old patterns, you know, and in the beginning, that's why we have, you know, breaking habits and just, you know, looking at your tool shed, looking at what's not working, and then you can retool. And that's why you need to unlearn a lot of things. You have to relearn. And in the beginning, you have to really have a beginner's mind, right?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Why can children learn faster than adults do? Because they have a beginner's mind. They're unassuming. They don't assume anything about a subject or a topic. They just are curious about something and learning something new, like maybe keto, carnivore, or whatever it is. If you want to learn something, you really have to have an open mind and forget about what you already know, your opinions and everything, and start fresh.
That's really hard for people.
Yeah.
I just want to circle back on one thing that you started to kind of touch on there, which is these identity statements. I am whatever.
Yes.
Because I do teach health coaches, and this is one of the things that I teach health coaches to identify with their clients. When clients come in making these identity statements, just please, like, we have to understand that they really believe that's who they are, and that those identity statements are probably holding them back. So there's one of our kind of neat skills that a health coach can bring to the table is in really paying attention to language. I love paying attention to language. So for example, what I've learned from my clients who are perfectionists is their core values include things like competence, achievement, right? Productivity. Like, they're productive, high achieving, competent people. It's like, okay, great. That you can be a high achieving, competent person and imperfect at the same time. So let's anchor to competence as a goal. And let's anchor to achievement as a goal and not to perfection, because that's not who you are. So we really do have to listen when people say, I am something.
Mm.
A lot of times they're not that. They want to be, or they think they should be. And we want to pull back and just really see
Yeah.
who they are.
And that's just a strong belief. And that's just a limiting belief. And, you know, if anyone knows anything about just changing your lifestyle, you really have to, you know, start with an open mind. Start with, you know, something fresh. Start fresh. Start from the zero. Unlearn. There's a lot of unlearning to do. Again, if your lifestyle isn't working, then if you find yourself in and out of diets, 30-day this, 30-day that, always looking for that end, always looking for that, you know, light at the end of the tunnel where you can go back to eating the same way, then your lifestyle isn't working anyways, right? So if you're always, you know, hungry, always thinking of food, I want to talk to you about this. And this is you talked about this on your programs, food fixations. Can we define it? People may not be aware of what, you know, falls in this category. Can you give us a few examples of having a food fixation?
Sure. Well, so I often come at this from the perspective of the insulin resistant person, which is statistically is a lot of people. Statistically is a lot of people. There was a CDC stat that went around that everybody's seen at this point, that 88% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy or on the spectrum for metabolic syndrome, which probably includes
88.
insulin resistance. 88%. So it means 12% of Americans are metabolically woke, which is wild. That means like in metabolic syndrome, we have symptoms like, you know, hypertension, insulin resistance, abdominal obesity. There's like a cluster of symptoms you can have that shore up to metabolic syndrome, but probably most of them are on the spectrum for insulin resistance. I'm not being diagnostic when I say that. That just seems to be true. And so, as I've said before, when you're insulin resistant, your cells aren't getting fuel because they've locked the door on insulin. So you can't bring energy into the cells. So you just are hungry all the time. And this symptom of being hungry all the time is a symptom of insulin resistance, but that's not the lived experience that people have. It feels like a flaw of my character. I'm supposed to be dieting. I'm supposed to be white knuckling it through willpower, but I'm so damn hungry. And so you fixate on food. When I get to my next meal, when is it? What's it going to be? How much? You know, is it going to be enough? And then you eat that meal, and then you're hungry immediately because you're waiting for the next meal. It's a tumultuous relationship with food. And it really does stem from something you touched on earlier, which is sort of like low satiety. When we're not satiated by food, we just are always hungry. Hunger is not a bad thing. Hunger, the feeling of hunger, when it works, when your body's working properly, the signal of hunger is a rather pleasant, I find it pleasant, signal from the body to say, hey, when you get a minute, we could use some nourishment. And nourishment could be calories, but it's probably amino acids, it's probably minerals. A lot of things. I use the word nourishment instead of fuel because I think the fuel thing gets us too into the weeds of like calories, to be honest with you. Anyways, it's a well-functioning hunger signal is easy. It's like, oh, I'm hungry. Oh, I'll eat. Oh, there, I ate. And life goes on. But in the presence of messed up hunger signaling and no satiety signaling, this feels like chaos. It's like
It's such a struggle.
Food is in the front of your mind at all times.
Yeah.
And when you fix all this stuff, like you probably know, like it goes in the back of your brain. You forget to eat until hunger shows up. You're like, oh, I'm hungry. I guess I should eat. At least I do. And
Yeah.
I love that because I always had such a tumultuous relationship with hunger. When I was anorexic, the hunger signal was the signal that it was working. Like, oh, I'm hungry. Great. I can feel my body devouring itself from the inside. This is great. This is working well. So what a weird relationship to have with hunger. But dieting for women as well, we're kind of taught to walk around hungry. So I really love changing people's relationship with hunger. Like, listen, it's a very polite signal from your body. Your job is to answer it. Let's just answer it differently so that you can achieve satiety, which is such a cool feeling. Answer hunger, eat to satiety, rinse, repeat. And what you'll find is that food goes into the back of your mind where it belongs. And then you can use the front of your mind for really important things in life.
Yeah, and it's just a struggle. I remember just you know, going through that. And I mean, that is such a struggle when I was at that point where, you know, I also was, you know, low fat in the beginning before I made changes. It was the word, I think for me, dieting, that word became very toxic at some point. And I know it is toxic for some people. And I don't like the word diet because it just, you know, it means short term for me. Like there's
Right.
there's an end to this, and I'm going back to the way it was after dieting, right? It means
Yeah.
dieting, there's an end.
Yeah.
Um, I always like to call it a lifestyle, and if you're not looking at it long term, anyways, then why? What are you doing it for? Just to lose a couple pounds here and there?
Right.
For me, longevity is everything.
Well,
Um, how do you know when your food fixation is getting out of hand there? What are the signs for us?
well, I one of the signs that I see come up a lot when I'm getting ready to start working with someone is the way they describe their snacking habits. This is
Mm,
so interesting. They'll say, "Oh, I'm a boredom eater. I'm an emotional eater. I'm a stress eater. If it's there, I'll eat it." Um, and
really?
it's like, because to me, like, I don't, nothing wrong with snacking, nothing wrong with it. But if it's like, this is, again, we're going back to identity. Like, if you identify as somebody with these problematic snacking pathologies, well, to me, urges for snacks, like endless urges for snacks, are because you're hungry, and you're hungry because you're undernourished, and you're undernourished because probably you're insulin resistant and you can't get the fuel into the cells, and it's this whole thing. So when I hear people talk about their snacking habits, like when people really think, because when you're filling in a form to work with a health coach, you have to think, right? Like the questions we ask on our intake forms make our clients think, like, why do you think you're holding on to this stubborn weight that you can't lose? This person has
Mm,
already declared that they eat right and exercise. So why do you think you've gained weight and you can't lose it? Well, I think it's my snacking habits. I just snack all the time. Oh, great. You're hungry. You have a tumultuous relationship with food because you're just always seeking out food. Food is in the front brain. If we can get you fed, nourished at the cellular level, that goes away. And then it's like, I still geek out on this like 13 years later after I've gone through my journey. I was just on my way home before this interview from the gym. I did this really heavy strength session. And you know, when you lift weights, the hunger you get after that is so pure. It's like, ooh, there's that good hunger. That's the hunger that
yes.
I just created by lifting weights, and I can't wait to get home and eat some eggs. And I felt like, what a dorky thing to say. I can't wait to get home and eat eggs. But like, that's a fun supportive relationship with food versus I'm
Mm,
hangry. I need to hit a drive through ASAP or I'm going to black out. Like anytime hangry shows up on the menu, your relationship with food is chaotic, and the amount of mental energy that people spend thinking about food, obsessing about food, worrying about food, finding food is wild. Like I've had clients be able to articulate to me, holy smokes, I can't believe how much time and energy I wasted thinking about food before I went through this transformation with you, Erin. Now I barely think about food at all. It's like wonderful. And just as a closed loop on this, I love food and I love pleasurable experiences, and I'm a huge hedonist. Absolutely, I'm hedonic at nature, and I'm not ashamed of it. When you have an effortless relationship with food, even treats become more special, right? It's like, I'm going to have a treat. Yes, I'm going to treat myself to that baklava at that really nice Greek bakery. I can't wait to
mm,
get it and just enjoy it. And versus somebody who's kind of hangry and always snacking and always partaking in
yes.
sweet things because they're stuck in that loop. There's no specialness there.
I want you to get to that. Let's clarify that for a second there. Is that you're not talking about a reward system, because that's different, right? When we talk about reward system, people reward with food
Hmm.
sometimes,
Yeah.
and that can be a toxic relationship where, okay, I would diet and then I would eat. What's the difference there, Erin? Can you?
So yeah, that's such a good question because I sometimes I push against the grain a little bit.
Mhm.
I do think food is rewarding. I do think food is joy. I do think food is comfort. And I think there's an emotional connection to it. I don't think we're bad if we feel that way. So like the reward system, the dopamine system of the brain is a system that, theoretically lights up when we have something truly, truly joyful and yummy or whatever. I don't think that's always a bad thing. But also there's tons of nuance, right? So I've had clients say to me, for example, this is actually a client literally said this to me. She said, before I started working with you, I like to have a little bar of milk chocolate every day. I always have my little bar of milk chocolate, little dairy milk bar. I think that's very Canadian. But anyways, it's just milk
Yes.
chocolate. And she said, "Can I have that bar of milk chocolate every day? Is that okay? Can I still do that?" And I said, "I don't know. Can you?" Because like, what is your relationship with that bar of milk chocolate? Can you have it? Can you enjoy it? Can you love? Is every bite a 10 out of 10 and you're just like in bliss mode and then you move on?
Mm-hmm.
Or does this now spiral into more and more sugar cravings or feelings of shame and disappointment? Like, what is your relationship with that chocolate bar? You can either peacefully coexist with it or you can't. And that's where this whole reward system thing I think is nuanced and it's
Mm.
individual.
So as opposed to being controlled by food, snacking, always hungry all the time, now you're in control. Now you know when to have it, and as opposed to being controlled by it and wanting it all the time. Like that's what
Yeah,
I'm getting from that.
a little bit. Yeah, there's a metabolic piece to that too, because when you're metabolically broken, the
Mm-hmm.
introduction of something sugary like a milk chocolate bar is going to trigger more cravings because the cells are like, that was good, get us more of that. We're starving
Mm-hmm.
here. But in a metabolically flexible person, you know, for some, not everybody. For some people, that chocolate bar can come in or that baklava can come in. I can eat it. I can lick my fingers and say, that was delicious and move on.
Yeah.
But for some people, if they eat one piece of baklava, they're going to have all 12. And I just think you have to know thyself. Like, where are you on that spectrum? And I don't know if that's a
I like that.
dopamine thing or what that is. But if you can honestly say, I'm not really good at moderating my intake of sweet things, so I'm probably better off just not tapping that. Then that's good to know.
Mm. You talked about metabolism there. Broken metabolism. We always hear people, talk about slowing metabolism as we age, which is known by the masses to be, contributing to fat loss, weight gain.
Hmm.
Um, People think that as they get up there in age, it is inevitable to gain weight. Why is this wrong, and how do we fix that?
Right. So, first of all, I do want to clarify. I use the phrase like broken metabolism because that's the phrase that clients use, but I don't think there's a lot of truth to it. I really don't think our metabolism breaks. But I like to speak in the language that clients are using because that's what they're experiencing. I do think that I do believe, well, I know this for a fact because as somebody who was pre-diabetic, my metabolism was not working. The system of the body that decides where to put fuel, it was not working because of these insulin resistant cells and all the things. So it's sort of like the metabolism can kind of go offline for a while, but it's extremely elastic. It will come back quickly. That's the good news. Like we know that if you kind of double down on some metabolically supportive practices, maybe like a ketogenic diet or something lower carb, within a matter of 10 days or 2 weeks, you have this insulin sensitivity back online. It feels great. So there's that. But with respect to aging, I honestly just think it is the passage of time. So we can assault our system with kind of dodgy fuel movement lifestyle inputs a little bit here and there for decades and decades and decades. In your 20s, you're more resilient. In your 30s, you're slightly less resilient. In your 40s, you're even less resilient. And by your 50s, it's like, so it's just mounting over time. I don't think there's any truth to the fact that metabolism inherently slows with age. I just think that we've just kind of been abusing it for decades, and by the time we get to our 50s or 60s, it's far gone. It's just far gone. Still can be pulled back. I think for women, again, I'm going to go down this path with women. When we go through our hormonal change in our 40s and 50s, where we start to move into menopause and estrogen and progesterone and testosterone start going haywire, there is a link between those hormones and the metabolic hormones, insulin, cortisol, leptin, ghrelin. And if we can get our eating and our metabolic hormones really purring earlier, 20s and 30s, then we will cruise through menopause potentially with less of this sort of like weight gain that's just become associated with menopause. But the problem is when you're in your 20s and 30s, you don't feel metabolically broken yet. There's no incentive. We don't feel metabolically broken until we get to our 40s and 50s. And it's like, oh, I should have done something about it back then, but we don't feel it. I think we just start to feel it more is what happens. I think the whole slowing or breaking of the metabolism is happening over decades, but you don't feel it when you're younger.
Mm. Do you think that's what happened to you when you were experiencing, weight gain in the beginning? This is before you were, you said you were working out 4 to 6 hours a day, and you're now, at in your 30s and experiencing weight gain. Is that the slowing metabolism? Because you could get away with it in your 20s, and now, same activity, same diet, and you're gaining weight. And
Yeah.
I know we talked about stress there, and over exercising. Is that part of that? What happened there? It's just that metabolism.
Yes. Okay. This is actually cool. Cool segue because, like, just small story time. I'll keep it short. But I remember when I was in my 20s and I was working in this corporate job and I was exercising all the time. And that was how I was known. I was the young fit girl. And all my coworkers in their 30s and 40s would say, "Wait till you get to your 30s, it's way harder." They would say that to me, like they're preemptively, warning me that when you get to your 30s, this staying lean is way harder. It's easy for you because you're in your 20s. Meanwhile, I'm exercising 6 hours a day. It wasn't exactly easy, but anyways. So then when I get into my 30s and I start putting on abdominal fat, even though I'm exercising like a maniac, it's sort of their voices are echoing in my head like, oh, they said this was going to happen. When you get to your 30s, you just start getting chubby. So I guess this is a consequence of aging. I guess I'm in my mid 30s. That's not old. But it's like, but the lady said when you get to your 30s, you start to get chubby. And here I am, even though I'm eating like a rabbit and I'm exercising all the time. Oh, I guess that's what happens when you get old. I chalked it up to aging at the age of like 34. And again, I go back to the fact that I don't know what it was inside me that said, no, that doesn't make sense. Because so many other people just accept it. Say, yep, well, I'm old now. So now my knees are going to be sore. I'm going to be brain foggy and fat. And this is it for me. So I was doing all that metabolic damage in my 20s, but I was more resilient to it. And in my 30s, I was still pretty resilient, but then I had this programming that when you're in your 30s, you start to age and, get slow and fat. So it was a lot of things at play there.
It is for some people like they that same voice becomes their excuse.
Yeah.
For okay, why should I keep working out? Why should I watch my diet? It's inevitable. Something it is gonna happen. It happens to everybody. Like the dad bod. Okay, I remember my friends telling me when I got married. Okay, hey, it's coming. Bro, it's coming. The dad bod is coming. I'm like, in the beginning, but I did put on some pounds. That's the reason why I transitioned into the ketogenic diet, because I packed 30 pounds like in the first like maybe a year into my first year of marriage. I'm like, okay,
Really?
something has like, yeah,
Do
I
you know
was
why?
um well, the fact that it's the same activity level, the same diet, I guess, but it's just that maybe I'm not watching what I'm eating, when I'm with my wife, but maybe I wasn't mindful at the time. But then when I did put on the pounds, I was also eating low fat. I got really depressed. Your anxiety is high, chronic anxiety, developed a chronic anxiety there. When I transitioned to a ketogenic diet, I did lose the pounds. I mean, I lost the 30 pounds, but I gained so much energy, and
Yes.
I could never imagine myself, being a health coach, helping other people, having a podcast, starting businesses before. And
Right.
my
Yeah.
excuse was, I didn't have time to do any of that because I'm busy with my day job. I was always tired. I was
Tired.
always, yeah, wanting, the diet culture, like we talked about in the beginning, became so toxic that, you're always looking for an exit, a way out, and looking for a way to lose a few pounds for the summer maybe, and then always wanting to get back to the way it was. Like that
Yeah.
wasn't just to open up the cycle of chronic yo-yo dieting, and that wasn't it for me. So when I gained so much energy, we talked about energy and losing weight here, it ultimately comes down to weight loss. And we talk about simplicity, and I want to get back to that. If you have one piece of advice to anyone struggling with their weight right now to kick off their health journey, where do they start? Like,
Okay. Breakfast is where you start. Corny as it sounds, I'm doubling down on this because there's so many reasons. First of all, I'm a circadian biology nerd. This is a piece that I fold into my coaching practice. Like, let's understand the harmony of the body from the perspective of the 24-hour clock. And when the sun rises, your body perceives that. Your body perceives that it's now daytime. The body only knows that there's a day ahead. It doesn't know what you're going to do. It doesn't know if you're going to sit on your butt or go for a workout or take a dog walk. It doesn't know what you're going to do. It only knows that a day started. So metabolically, the body's kind of waiting for you to send in some nourishment for the day. And what do? We grab a yogurt. We eat a banana. We have a piece of toast in the car on the way to work or coffee. We have these lame breakfasts. So I always tell my clients, this is one of my number one rules, is always answer hunger with a meal. And when you feel your first hunger of the day, that needs to be an epic meal. So like these eggs that I just talked about a second ago, my first meal of the day was at noon. So it doesn't have to be in the morning. It's just whenever your first hunger of the day shows up, answer it epically. Like I crushed 6 eggs because I created an epic hunger. Well, the sort of daytime created hunger, and then my workout added to the hunger. And I answered my first hunger with this epic break fast. So this is a protein dominant meal, protein and the fat that comes along with protein. So eggs with the yolks, chicken with the skin, whatever, beef with the fat. A protein dominant meal that answers and satiates your first hunger of the day epically. If you do that in the early part of the day when your body is ready to take up and put this fuel to work, you are going to experience such long-term satiety that your next hunger is not going to show up again for hours and hours. You're not going to think about snacking, all this snacking pathology people anchor to. When your next hunger shows up, it's going to be a little quieter. Now we're at lunchtime, maybe supper time. Like everything changes downstream from an epic break fast. So when people are struggling with weight loss and they want a simple answer, well, the simple answer is we have to solve for satiety. We have to make you feel really satiated. How do we do that? An epic protein dominant breakfast meal does it every damn time. And people know this because we've all had a hangover breakfast. We've all gone for New Year's Day brunch where we've just feasted on bacon and eggs or whatever. Even if you're not a keto person, you've done this. And then you don't eat for the rest of the day. We know that it works. We've experienced it. Now we're just going to kind of game it a little bit. Let's do that every time. Every day, your first hunger of the day, satisfy it with an epic, ridiculous breakfast. I had 6 eggs. When I tell my clients this, they're like, well, what do you mean, like 2 eggs? I'm like, no, minimum 4. They're like, well, that's a lot of food. I don't think I can eat that much food. I'm like, well, worst case scenario, you put the fork down, right? Whatever. You have leftovers for later. Best case scenario, you crush those 4 eggs, or in my case 6, and then you're not hungry again for 6, 7, 8 hours.
That sounds amazing. That sounds delicious for one. Okay, so I want to end it with this. And this is for me. And you talked about sleep, and you talked about, how, because I'm very, sleep is important to me as well. And you said treat it like work. What do you mean by that? I want to get to understand this.
Sleep like it's your job.
Like it's your job, yeah.
Well, what's really cool is that sleep is having such a moment right now. I think everybody, even in like the conventional realm of health, is like, yeah, if you're not sleeping, you're screwing up. And I've had it second on my list of importance after food. Like to me, food is the biggest dial mover, and sleep is a very close second. But I mean, so for a couple reasons, it's crucial. First of all, again, to circadian biology, we want to tell our bodies, we want to really clue our bodies in to where we're at on the 24-hour clock. So we should be sleeping when it's dark. And there's a whole pile of like what to do before sleep to really, really dial in that melatonin production. So you're fully sleeping restfully when it's dark. Like how soon before bed are you eating? How soon before bed are you stressing? How soon before bed are you working out? Are you having a really intentional evening wind down where you're changing the light in your home and your light exposure in your eyes? So we're creating this whole sunset into sleep, into darkness routine, which syncs up our circadian clock on the back end. So we're syncing it up on the front end by waking up and engaging with the daylight and eating food when it makes sense. And we're syncing it up on the back end by sleeping when it makes sense. But we also know that chronic short sleep.
Hey Ketones crew, if you want to work with me, I just released my one-on-one 60-minute consultation where we will take a deeper dive into your health journey and formulate a plan where you can incorporate the ketogenic diet to fit your lifestyle. If you're interested, take control of your health today. Click the link on the description box below and let's get started. Hey guys, let me tell you about this delivery service that's been a total game changer for my lifestyle. Did you know that it's now possible to get local, fresh groceries delivered right at your doorstep? Well, Instacart gives you unlimited grocery delivery for one low monthly fee. And if I can avoid buying non-keto friendly items from supermarkets who psychs you into buying unhealthy foods, plus if it saves me a lot of time and money, sign me up. Instacart is hand-selected by shoppers based on your preferences, so no more rock-hard avocados, and they will keep your eggs safe too. And Instacart will find everything you usually buy and get smart suggestions for new items. And you can get your first order today delivered for free when you purchase over $35 by following the link on the show notes below to let Instacart know that I sent you and to help to support the show. Instacart. Never step foot in the grocery store again.
Is one of the most prominent chronic stressors in our life. So the body perceives short sleep as a stress. And anytime we're in chronic stress mode, you're not going to liberate fat from storage. Your body doesn't give a damn about your fat loss goals if you're in chronic stress mode, because the body, when you're in chronic stress, the body's in protection mode. It's like something's going on in the environment. We have to hoard fuel. And short sleep is a stress. And for most people who are chronic short sleepers, it's a stress that happens every day. Every day they're being chased by this metaphorical bear, right? And the body's hoarding fuel to protect you from that. So from a fat loss perspective, you got to get to sleep. It has to be quality sleep. All the sleep hygiene rules that everybody already knows. I really geek out on melatonin. It's my second favorite hormone after insulin. But like, how can we optimize the production of melatonin? That starts by doing things in the daytime that make sense. So that includes that epic break fast. I believe that epic break fast meal that I talked about, again, reminds your body where it's at on the 24-hour clock so that it starts triggering melatonin production at the right time. So you get to sleep and wash, rinse, repeat.
Epic break fast. All right. Noted. Any other tips at getting quality sleep? You talked about melatonin. Do you supplement with melatonin or just getting into that circadian rhythm that you talk about?
Yeah, I'm such a fan of harmonizing your body, because your body knows what to do. Our body knows exactly what to do. We're in charge of the inputs. We're in charge of providing the appropriate input so the body can do what it's programmed to do. I'm not fond of melatonin supplementation. I think it's useful for jet lag situations, and that's about it. But to optimize melatonin, it's all the things that Huberman says, like get early morning daylight. That tells your body to start that sort of countdown timer to melatonin production. There's that whole the adenosine sort of time clock that kicks off from sunrise. It starts to build your sleep drive. And then again, with changing our light exposure in the evening, dimming it, making it more amber, that dim light melatonin onset, that triggers the production of melatonin. But also when you're eating, I have this whole thing I do in my group program. It's called the Eat Simple clock. It's like, here's where a 24-hour clock, here's where you would put eating, here's where you'd put moving, here's where you'd put sunlight exposure, here's where you would put your evening wind down. And all of this stuff is geared toward optimizing melatonin production naturally. That's my favorite sleep hack, is just like optimize for melatonin. But I do have to put a plug in for the Chili Sleep systems. Those Chili Sleep systems, the bed cooling mattress pads. Oh my gosh.
Okay, please.
Changer.
What is it?
Okay. So what's their website? Their website's called, I think it's sleep.me. So this is the Chili Sleep system, or you might have heard of 8 Sleep, because lots of podcasts are sponsored by 8 Sleep. But these are bed cooling mattress pads. Because your body's meant to cool as you move into deep sleep. But we throw our big heavy duvets on, we have the furnaces cranked, but your body's meant to be cool. So if you can cool your body down, that also encourages the production of melatonin and just gets you into deep sleep. This thing has been just invaluable to me. It's a very expensive gadget. I think they have a 25% off sale right now, actually, to be honest with you, but worth every penny as far as I'm concerned, especially for anybody who's cruising into menopause and gets a little hot and sweaty at night. It's so good.
Sleep chill system. It's a sleep chill system.
It's the Chili Sleep system.
Chili Sleep. All
yeah.
right.
Yeah. I think that's what they're calling it. They changed their names a few times. They've changed their branding a few times, but sleep.me is the website, and they have a few different models. They're just great. They're just a great thing. I love that thing.
All right. Awesome. And did we miss anything here, Erin? You can plug in real quick all of your programs here, and where can people find you?
Okay, yeah. So I'm most active on Instagram. So I would say just, find me on Instagram, Eat Simple Erin, and that's a great way to just see if you like vibe with somebody, just to see if you even want to work with them. So really definitely do that. I have a few ways that I work with people. So I do always have one-on-one coaching relationships that are open. Those are generally longer term. So you have to hook in for about 6 months with me, because we do big moves. If you want to improve your relationship with food and get really metabolically woke and maybe even improve your melatonin production. We can work on that, but it takes a lot of time. I'm really an advocate for patience with health change. Like it's the skill to master. About 4 to 5 times a year, I run a group program called the Metabolic Reboot. And it's a 30-day program that teaches you quickly, probably what I would call my 30 top hacks. Every single day you get emailed a new tactic to try. You layer them up, and by 30 days, you've got sort of renewed insulin sensitivity. So you have that energy surge that you get when your body's adequately fueled. You're feeling less hungry and snacky. Most people lose a little belt hole or a pant size in that 30 days. So it's a nice little kickoff. I run that 4 times a year. The next one will be February 2023. So one coming up here relatively quickly.
Eat Simple, Erin, guys. Get on that real quick here. We're gonna link everything on the description box below if you guys want to check that out. Again, Erin Power, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story here. We have a lot here, and I would definitely re-listen to this if you haven't taken notes or anything. But Erin, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Awesome. All right. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.